I'll take it, I guess.
Go for it. All right, we started.
Oh, hey everyone! Welcome to Taking Liberties. I guess this is a special video as we're going to make with respect to
An after
the.
hours show. I remember us calling it back in the day.
Yeah, except it's not really after hours. This is more like a PSA regarding like the plebiscite thing that's still going on at the time of recording this video.
Yep.
Now, if you haven't mailed it in, I think this is probably the last week that you might be able to do and
I
get it in
recall the
before.
7th of November being like the last day or something.
The 7th of November is the absolute last day. No, the 4th of November is the absolute last day. Yeah,
So
and it'll come out
next
then.
weekend.
So I would say this week, this weekend's probably the last you can get it in for sure. And I'd say probably the 31st of October might be the very, very last day you can get it in. So, last 2 weeks, I guess I wanted to make a video, but basically, okay, so this is coming from me over the last couple of weeks where I've been basically called a social justice warrior, homophobe, anti-conservative crusader, fascist, virtue signaler, and I think someone called me a dickhead as well.
Virtue signal. Oh my goodness, how dare they?
I know, right?
It's like the
Uh,
biggest insult.
it's not an insult to me. I do virtue signal quite a fucking lot. It's fun. It's so cathartic. But the reason for this is obviously the plebiscite has been proposed, and I've been embroiled in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of posts regarding this. And quite frankly, I know you guys want to call them arguments, but this is the internet. Nobody wins anything here,
Yeah.
so I'd be hesitant to call it that.
We always win cancer.
Ah, God, some of those posts are cancer. Now, in some of them, I've been very much in the no camp. In others, I've been in the yes camp, and I think I've basically said on several occasions I'm basically leaning to abstaining unless people can make it worth my while.
Did they end up making it worth your while? Did you?
No. Lots of people have said they will, right? And I just go like, cool. I'm going to be at this bar at this time.
Yeah.
But
You deliver the goods.
Yeah, deliver the goods, and they just haven't. They have not. You guys are fucking lazy pricks. Now, my overall impression about both sides is both sides actually have really good arguments for yes and no. And this shouldn't actually surprise us, given how contentious the issue is. However, the ones that we tend to see are the really awful arguments. And that's why for the last couple of weeks we've really just been talking past each other. So I wanted to basically make this video as a sort of guide, if you like. I'm on the fence, right? I haven't decided yes or no. I've got three that I think are good arguments. And my definition of a good argument is it encourages you to think about the topic, right? And to think about the topic in this way. So basically I've gone, there's three good ones for the yes camp, there's three good ones for the no camp. Then after that, I kind of wanted to talk about the three really shit arguments from each camp. And there are really shit arguments from both camps. Right? And Lee's here, so we might even basically talk about it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So I guess we'll start on the yes side.
Sure.
And I guess the third best argument for yes. And ironically, this argument has been brought up by the No campaign, but someone turned it on its head, and I realized, okay, this is actually a really good argument for the yes campaign, much significantly better for the yes campaign than it is for the no campaign, and that is freedom of conscience and religious liberty. Right? Now, if you think about it, right now, the law as it stands denies me as so Hindus, for example, do not have a hang-up about gay people getting married.
Yep.
Right? In fact, like our tradition is set up in such a way that we prefer people getting married as to people not getting married. However, we have a huge problem with sodomy, and that's why it's legal. Yep. Right? But having said that, though, if I went through my training and became, a religious clergyman, became effectively a priest as a Hindu priest, I would not be able to marry a gay couple, right? Despite the fact that I have no moral objections to it, right? It's pretty much encouraged in my religion. So, like, my religious liberty is being stifled, effectively.
Yep.
And
And that's equally true of there's large swathes of Anglican and Uniting churches, like they're two big
Well, that's
denominations
actually the
where they
example I
are
was going to use.
hugely, like, what we would call, like, in Christian circles, like, theologically liberal, that is.
Yep.
Not so wed to the Bible being the word of God, not so wed to critical ideas, and leaving aside, like, I mean, obviously there's theological discussion to be had there, but nevertheless, that is a real tradition. Like, it's not like somebody made it up yesterday.
Exactly. So I was at a friend's wedding, and it was just earlier this year. And basically, it's here in Canberra. You can imagine it's a pretty left-wing sort of place. So it was run by the Uniting Church.
Yep.
And the priest basically said, this is where the law gets particularly bad. So he said marriage is between a man and a woman to the exclusion of all others, right? And then he sort of went through that really quickly. And he said, here's the thing, right? And he basically said, here's the thing. I want to stop for a second here. I don't believe that. Right? And I know a lot of us here don't believe that, but the law says I have to say it.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And he said that after that because you could clearly see there were some homosexual couples in the audience who didn't appreciate hearing that. And he was just being polite and saying, look, I don't believe it. I know a lot of people here don't believe it. The law forces me to say that. So the law as it is written is not just discriminatory from the perspective of the law, it also goes outright into, like, actually forcing people to hold, so forcing celebrants to say things. Yeah. So at the very least, the component which forces you to say that should be removed.
Yeah.
Right? Because that actively denies religious liberty right now.
Yep.
Right?
Totally agree.
So, so if you're in the no camp and you're arguing religious liberty, you should be arguing for a change in the amendment at least to get rid of that section. Okay, so
I'll just make mention. I mean, I actually wrote an article on religious liberty and this issue, and how religious liberty is kind of a basis for. I mean, really, in the end, I'm arguing that religious liberty is like if I can't tell you who God is, then I can't tell you anything. I can't tell you that drugs are bad. I can't tell you. Like, I can't force you to do anything if I can't force you to believe in any God. So I wrote an article basically on those lines about gay marriage. It's on the Spectator, Australia, if anybody wants to check it out. Still there.
Yep.
Shoot. Next point. So
okay. So the next one, I guess, is the third worst for the Yes campaign. Okay. And that is everyone who opposes is a bigot. Yeah. You guys really need to lighten up on the use of that word. I don't know how I can say it other than that. It's used too liberally, and I'm just going to say this: not everyone who fucking opposes gay marriage is a bigot. Okay, you need to get that through your head. Not every single person is a bigot. People have reasons. They have bad reasons. They have good reasons. But the point is, not everyone is a bigot.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, okay, so my take on this, as somebody who is a conservative Christian, hangs out with a lot of conservative Christian, and is basically, apart from my wife, the only conservative Christian who's out there. I mean, my wife doesn't even bang the drums for this. Like, I'm the only conservative Christian that I know of who's out there saying we should legalize same-sex marriage. Lots of people I know I've put my argument about religious freedom and all the rest of it on, and they've said, oh, yeah, okay, I can see, so they're maybe a bit ambivalent.
Yep.
But I think, actually, bigotry is involved in this issue, because...
I'm not denying the lack of bigotry in there. I'm saying not everyone...
Let me finish. So, I don't think it's the kind of bigotry where they're like, yes, let's go punch the gays, because they're dangerous. I think it's that within conservative Christian circles, it's okay to have double standards about gay people. Now,
sure.
And so I think in that regard, bigotry is actually involved. I don't know if it's helpful to go out and say that all the time, though, because if you say, so in the sermons that I've heard, this is something I've heard from the pulpit.
Yeah.
Lots of Christians are really eager to deny the charge of bigotry. But I think it's hard to avoid the conclusion that actually they have a different set of standards about what should and shouldn't be allowed. So they don't say we should not let gay people get married, but they don't say we should stop divorce. There's lots of other things in the realm of sexuality and in the realm of family where they don't also single that out. It's just the gays can't adopt, shouldn't be able to adopt, the gays shouldn't be able to get married.
Yep.
So, you know, I think that probably is bigotry. I don't know if it's helpful to actually just go around and say, oh, you're just a bigot. Like, that's great if you want to appeal to your own side. If you want to, like, yeah, screw those bigots. Sure, then you're going to say that. But, like, if you want to persuade other people, going up to them saying, well, you're just a bigot, well, that's the end of the conversation. There's nothing you can really...
Exactly. So, and that's why I said that's the third worst argument I've heard.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So the third best no that I've got down is threat to liberty. And this is probably not going to come out in the same way as people were expecting it, right?
Sure.
I'm not saying gay marriage is a threat to liberty, right? What I'm saying is there are certain aspects that are being tied around the gay marriage thing by its proponents that are threats to liberty, and yes, they need to be challenged. Now, the thing is, I think the No campaign goes about this the wrong way. They kind of bundle it all together and say no to gay marriage because of all these things, when in fact what they should be trying to do is trying to decouple these things and saying, like, well, I'd be okay for gay marriage if safe schools also wasn't attached to it. Or I'd be okay to gay marriage, you know, if my baker wasn't going to be forced to make, you know, bake the cake. Yeah. But that's not what's happening. So they're saying, I'm going to vote no because of this thing. And I'd be like, I'd be okay with it if it wasn't for this thing. And I think that I think a simple reframing of that issue for the no camp would actually, I think, take the sting out of all of these other things that are attached to it, or it would make it quite clear that these are issues that they need to campaign for, that Yes Camp needs to campaign for separately, and they've got a lot of baggage attached. Now, I'm not saying that they can't campaign for that, right? Like all these additional things, safe schools, you know, stopping Christian bakers from not serving gay people, all of this stuff, they can absolutely campaign for all of that. Just don't attach it with same-sex marriage itself, because obviously it's basically creating a lead balloon. So yeah, I think that's a good reason to vote no. I just don't think they've put it in the best way, like packaged it the best way.
Okay, I don't.
You don't agree with the reasoning, yeah?
Yeah, I don't. I really don't. I mean, I think, in some ways, I don't blame. Like, it's not solely the fault of the No campaign that they are bundling this, because I think for the Yes campaign, they're bundling it as well. Like, it's both.
Yeah, they are absolutely.
The reason why this is such a heated issue is because it's the culture wars.
Yeah,
and it's a point of actual, like, legislative
contention.
Real thing. Like, it's a real thing that's going on in Parliament that has all this other stuff attached to it. So for the left, it's fighting bigotry on, you know, like, it's a real instance where they can say, oh, we're going to fight bigotry. For the right, it's like, we're going to protect our values. So all this stuff gets bundled in by both sides.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not, like, singling out the No campaign, but I still think it's a bad argument.
No, I actually don't. I think it's actually a good argument, because you want things to be decoupled, right? And you want to be able to signal in a way that, hey, these things shouldn't be coupled, right?
But they're not. Like, safe schools is not actually part of the issue.
Well, yeah, that's true. It's
like, you know, like, it's
technically not.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think, obviously for some on the left, this is part of a broader set of changes.
Yeah.
But it's not like they're campaigning of, like, we need to get gay marriage so we can have safe schools. Like,
actually, they are. Well, there are definitely some people.
There might be some fringe people, but, like,
yeah.
broadly speaking,
no, it's
the
not.
Actual
it's
Yes
not,
campaign is going out and say this is not about safe schools.
No, it's not a fringe thing, because I know for a fact you can see there are loads and loads of pictures from the main campaign which say yes to safe schools and all of this other stuff, right?
Yeah, I don't know why you think that. That's...
And not just that, but you had what's her face? Was it Tanya Plibersek at the Sydney one saying that they need to strengthen the Sex Discrimination Act to protect LGBT people? So it's not, you know, as a result of this campaign. So it's not as if they haven't already bundled it. It's bundled together from both perspectives. So I think in that perspective, the No campaign has a better claim to say, I don't want to vote this way because there's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't like that's been bundled into this. I think they've got a stronger case.
Well, let's move on, because...
Yeah. Sure. The next, so the third worst no, and it's basically their campaign's logo. It's okay to vote no.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry. If you're saying this, it's effectively the same as saying, "I love free speech." Yeah, sure, but you're not really saying anything, right? Every time someone says it's okay to vote no, I just think you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Right? I'm sorry, you've made yourself look like an idiot in my eye. And you're going to say, like, who are you? You know, how can you be insulted with my opinion? Blah, blah, blah. It's like my opinion. Well, that's my point. It's that it's your opinion. It's okay to vote no. Nobody ever said it wasn't okay to vote no.
Oh, but
right?
They're victims, Vickers. They're victims. They're
Yeah.
victims of a hate campaign. And so they need to tell themselves it's okay to vote no because they're victims of a hate campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I actually think, and this is true on both sides. So in particular, there's been like one person on both sides of the campaign in my Facebook friends who normally they share a lot of stuff, and I had to unfollow them because it was just non-stop victimhood commentary. You know, it was a yes person saying, "Oh, the yes campaign are victim of all this homophobic bullying," and a no campaign is, a no person saying, "Oh, look at all this hate towards the no." It's like, just please, for the love of God, don't run to victimhood. It's just so facile and stupid and immature, and just grow a pair of balls and get on with it. Like,
yeah, it's a debate. It's a debate. Not everyone. No one's gonna. It's a debate. Not everybody has a valid opinion, or a valuable opinion, right? And if you're in the "it's okay to vote no" camp, you're in B, right?
Yeah.
Your opinion's not valuable. I'm sorry. You've added nothing. You contribute nothing.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, we could remove you from the debate, and it would be just the same as having you in there.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's okay to vote no. Fucking trash.
Yep.
Please bin it. So
number twos.
Number two of the yes. So you might like this.
Okay. All right. I'm ready. I'm braced.
Would you have voted yes to ban gay marriage in 2004? Right. And this argument was actually presented to me by someone who's voting no. Yeah.
All right.
And
this is yes. This is a yes.
Yeah. Because this particular person who said this said he then wished, after having been asked this question, that he voted yes. Right. And it's a powerful line of thinking. Okay. So pretend you're in 2004. The 2004 amendment to ban gay marriage is now the plebiscite instead of the plebiscite we're having now to allow same-sex marriage.
Sure.
Would you say yes in that ban? Would you vote yes in that plebiscite?
To ban it?
To ban it.
If I'd been there at the time, I probably would have voted yes because I wasn't a libertarian. So,
sure, right? But this guy was a libertarian. So this guy is a libertarian, and he basically said, "I would not have voted yes."
Yep.
Right. And he said, like, my reasons to vote no are, like, I don't like all of this other crap that's being, basically reason number 3. And he said, but at the same time, right, if I was presented this option in 2004, I would not have voted yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he basically said to me that, like, it's quite simple. I'm deregulating.
Yep.
Right? So the reason why I put this as the second best is it's really powerful to libertarians, right? Right? Because libertarians who are struggling with this and going, like, they have a conservative tendency and they want to vote no for it.
And they want to fight the left. And they want to fight cultural Marxism.
They want to fight they want to fight the cultural left and all of that shit. Right? They want to fight all of that stuff, right? At the same time, they haven't quite grasped that what this plebiscite is ostensibly about is effectively deregulation, right? So this particular line of thinking is a really good way to start thinking about, hey, in 2004, gay marriage is not illegal. Plebiscite comes out saying we want to add something to define marriage as only between a man and a woman to the exclusion of all others, and we want clergy to be forced to say it, etc., etc., etc. Right? They want to add that into the legislation, right? Would the case have been made to libertarians? And I think the vast majority of libertarians would not have voted yes on that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good
it's a very good argument for the yes side. So the second worst from the yes side. Love is love. You had to see this one coming. Now, I've actually got some colourful wording written around this. The saccharine banality of this statement is enough to give me diabetes. This isn't an argument, it's a prime candidate for the most blatantly masturbatory virtue signal of 2017. Literally every person I've seen with the Twibbon stating this on my Facebook wall has resulted in me in saying, I thought we could be friends, but your Facebook profile gave me cancer. I want to emphasize how bad this argument is because while it comes from a well-meaning place, it literally plays into the Bernardi type of conservatives who argue, quite completely ironically, of course, that gay marriage will lead to bestiality. Sorry, not all love is worthy of government-approved means of registration and certification for the purposes of law. Further to that point, not all love is love. Some people are sick. If you're a person who presents this argument and is serious about it, please write a letter to someone who cares. I assure you, I don't. Any reasonable person would be right not to take you seriously.
Yes. Okay. I think there's some validity to your critique there. I mean, I don't think.
I don't think that's
I think you're right in saying it does play into the hands of Bernardi and co. But then again, everything does for them. Like any argument in favour, in their mind, plays into their hands.
Yeah, but it's such an easy one. Like it's such an easy one to dismiss.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, oh, is all love? So between a man and an animal.
Yeah.
Right, and I go like, well, no, not clearly, and it's just like, well, why the fuck did you bring it up?
Love. Yeah. Okay. I can see. Yeah. Sure. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. Saccharine. It's annoying. I don't like it. Yeah. So the best.
Second best no.
Second best no. Why don't we just call it a civil union? I actually like this, and it was the plan that was put into place in 2012. Right? Let's stop dicking around with the word marriage and say what it actually is. It's a civil union. Right? Instead of like trying to play to what marriage means, let's just have a civil union, and a marriage can be a part of a civil union a marriage can be a type of civil union if people want it to be. Right? The key point here is it's a contractual, like there's a line in Mindhunter, and if you haven't watched it, it's on Netflix. It's a great TV show. Get into it. There's a line in Mindhunter where the guy goes like, "You haven't been married. A marriage is basically like a corporation, right? Except you can't fire her and she can't dump you, right? Money has to come in, and it's really, really painful to break everything up, right? That's what a marriage is. From the perspective of government, that's effectively what a marriage is. A marriage is basically a limited a limited partnership with extremely unfavorable terms for property for dissolution. Yeah. That'd be a good description?
I think so, yeah. It's from, like, you could have just the blah blah act where it just defines all of this stuff without using the name marriage, like that you enter into this agreement.
Well, that's what
between two people.
The Marriage Act doesn't do anything other than define what a marriage is. It doesn't even. It literally doesn't do anything other than say this is a marriage, right?
Well,
here are the types of people
into a marriage as well. Like that's all. It's not. So you could theoretically just you could take it to language that doesn't use the M word. It's just that when we talk about the M word, everybody knows what we mean by a marriage. If you say, "Oh, I'm getting married," you don't need to do it like give a 15-step explanation of what that exactly means. So that's why we use it. It's a shorthand. Like it's an easy shorthand. But I agree with you in the extent that like it doesn't really the word doesn't make it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I think the issue is that for people who push that argument, they still kind of want it to be different.
Yeah.
So
they want separate but equal. But I don't care about their intent, right?
Yeah.
I'm saying like a good argument for no would be to say, hey, no, let's not get involved with marriage. Let's actually reform the Marriage Act so that what we're talking about now is all civil unions and nobody gives a shit about marriage anymore.
Sure.
Right? Or rather, only the religious give a shit about marriage. Yeah. Right? And that's fine by me. As like if legal wise it's all the same, then it's perfect. Yeah. But that's not where it's going right now. So that's fine. Moving on to the next one. Worst.
Actually, just before we go to that, I'd be interested to know how conservatives would respond to something like that. So, I obviously get a lot of conservative stuff in my newsfeed from my Christian friends talking about, that the degradation, the degradation of family and blah blah blah. Anyway, there was this, legislation in Canada where they essentially tried to reform the laws in Ontario to kind of have a better legal framework for parenthood, right?
Yep.
And they took out mother and father and like birth parent and adoptive parent. They used more kind of legalistic language because and for me it makes sense that you would do that because like mother and father doesn't necessarily tell you kind of the legal relationship between people. It just tells you.
Yeah.
You can call anybody mum. You can call anybody dad. Like what you need is when you want to have a legal framework is you want legal language that clearly defines. Okay, this person's.
Oh, is this what people were getting? Is this what people were getting shitty about?
Yeah, it's called Bill Act 28 or like Bill 28 or something.
Wait, so is this what people were getting all shitty about? Going like, oh, they're taking mothers and fathers out of the.
Yeah. Because I mean, this is the thing. Yeah, so that their response was perfectly like it's not social engineering. It was actually just let's have a better framework for trying to understand complex family relationships in the 21st century.
Yeah.
Good. That's a good thing. You want that. You want clarity in the legislation. And conservatives responded by going, oh, they're trying to get rid of mothers and fathers. And you're like, you guys are just the biggest dickheads on the planet. Do you not understand what you're... Like, it just makes me think they're completely devoid of intelligent thought. Like, all they want is that desperate, tasty outrage. And so, the reason I bring this up is because you're suggesting something quite radical, which wouldn't actually appease... I don't know if it would appease anybody, which is to take the term marriage out of this whole process. Okay, fine. I suspect conservatives would not like that. I suspect...
Well, they can suck my dick then. I'm sorry, there's no other way to put it. Like, seriously.
If only, like, we should get a t-shirt that says that.
I'm sorry, I'm sitting there going like, I'm looking for a legal framework here to describe something. There's describe a very simple contract, right?
Sure.
That's all I'm looking to do. All I want to do is, this is a contract, these kind of elements can enter into it, right? And these are the terms for, how you actually arrange this contract. That's all I'm interested in.
You can call it marriage, you can call it civil, anything.
Yeah. That's all I'm interested in.
Sure.
Right? And you're telling me like conservatives are going to get all uppity about that. I'm sorry.
They will get uppity about it.
Okay, yeah, and if they do get uppity, my response is going to be, please just suck my dick. I'm sorry. I just don't have time for you. Yeah. Like this, I have determined that this is the best way to have a legal framework that describes this thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, let's move on.
No. I want to finish up on one more point on that.
Okay.
If you're a legislator and this is what's happening to you, that needs to be a response. This needs to be a more frequent legislative response. I'm sorry. It really does. Until people get this, they just, anyway. So,
I suspect it might have a particular connotation if, say, Dean Smith or someone said it. Like, it'd be particularly egregious to conservatives.
You might enjoy it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying he says it to... Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or Tim Wilson says it. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to go down well.
Okay, so second worst, no. Gays want special rights.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard this without wanting to choke the person who said it.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. For a gay couple to get the same privileges right now, they have to prove that they're in a relationship. And this is something that everybody in a de facto relationship has to do, right? It's a very expensive process, right? In fact, I think Michael Tice from Tice Lawyers, it's a family law firm, it's a boutique family law firm, and I frequently get into arguments about this. He showed me that his last case on this cost something like $250,000 or something like that, right? Just for a couple to prove that they were married, right?
Yeah.
And that's so it's incredibly difficult to prove that, and it's expensive. So that alone, there are probably other little differences here and there as well.
Yeah.
But the fact that you have to spend money to prove your relationship,
yeah,
right, is enough to say it's not a special right. They're just asking for fucking recognition.
Yeah,
recognition with
I'm pretty sure you probably saw the article that I shared. In one of the Facebook groups where there was a British couple, a British gay couple. They were married. They came to Australia on their honeymoon. One of them died, and basically every single decision had to go through the the deceased the deceased man's family in the UK, because South Australia doesn't recognise overseas married couples, like who are gay couples who are married. So essentially, it's a good thing that the widower was on good terms with the family, because everything went smoothly. But if he wasn't on good terms with them, that guy could have had any funeral arrangements. You know, if he wanted, I think it might have heard brought up, like in this whole discussion, is, you know, if they were a conservative Christian family, they could bring the body back, have a Christian, you know, like a Christian wedding where they get up and say that all gays are going to hell, because, you know, essentially in that situation, the partner would have to prove in court they were married, or that they had a special, you know, they had a relationship, and that's going to cost thousands of dollars, and that's not much help when you're having the funeral next week. So,
yep,
it's just
the cost factor alone is enough to say that they're not asking for special rights. They're just asking for, hey, can we not have to spend as much money to have this done?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not really costing us anything to do it.
No.
Yeah. So the best yes. So I'm sure everybody has been waiting for this one. The best yes answer. So the best reason to vote yes is family. Right.
Okay.
Despite much of the no campaign focusing on the family, it's actually the best reason to vote yes. You see, gay couples can already adopt, right? They can already have families insofar as their parents that have children. And they're raising those children presumably to be productive members of society. The best thing to do, and this is me getting all conservative, is to put them on the same legal and I guess you could say recognition level from a government perspective as any other effectively couple with kids is in.
Yeah.
Insofar as the genie's already out of the bottle and we have gay families, the best thing is for those families to have the same stability and protection from a legal perspective that all families enjoy. I like this argument most because it depends on the fundamental ideal that I have, and this is my conservatism coming out, the government's ultimate position is to allow the basic building block of society, which is the family, to thrive. I don't think there's any other purpose to government, really, other than that. The main reason this argument is appealing to me is because it decentralizes power. So the breakdown should be, in an ideal world, the breakdown should be the sovereignty of the individual, followed by the duty to one's family, followed by adherence to the laws of the state. I would welcome same-sex couples in Australia to that world so that they can raise their family and ostensibly fit into what we would call Australian society. So that's the best reason I can think of for voting yes, is that you're giving
I mean, I think that
families, gay families, a chance.
I mean, that heavily integrates in with the what we just brought up, which is the saying the gays want special rights. Well, no, actually, this legal protection system is helpful when it's cheap. Like, you want it to be cheap for people. You want people to not have to go through difficult processes when things, because I mean,
you don't want to drive them into destitution just because the spouse does. Yeah,
exactly. So, like, essentially, marriage law, like family law, only matters at 2 points: when you enter into the relationship and when you exit the relationship. And be it through death or through breakup. And at those 2 points, you don't want to make it harder than it needs to be. Like, it's already tough enough.
I mean, think about it. Like, a kid's gonna have to, so the children, right? They're going to be tied to one parent, right? They're not going to be tied to the other parent. The other parent dies, right? Who claims the body?
Yeah.
Right? The body gets claimed by that person's family as opposed to their kids.
Yeah.
Right? Where's the sense in that?
Yeah, exactly. And also, just in terms of, like, as you said, if you want to, if you're married, you don't need to prove you have a relationship. It's just, you just walk into family court and it's a given. You
don't even have to walk into family. You don't even have to walk into family court, right? If you're married, it's recognized by everyone, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you just walk in.
Say that you at the point at which you start to have those negotiations to resolve the dispute.
Yeah.
It's that the fact you had a relationship is given, and so you don't have to spend all this time just. You can't use it as a weapon against another person to say, well, I'm going to dispute it.
Yeah.
It's just it smooths things. So yeah, that's really important. And I just want to add that I think Christians, in my experience, are weirdly inconsistent in this area. So I mean, even
It's not just Christians, actually. It's all the monotheistic religions. They make overtures to family, but I'm going to get slightly theological here. I think it's because the monotheistic religions both have that common root of this all-powerful deity, right, that they have to basically worship, that their ties to the family is not as strong as, like, the East Asian societies, right? Like, for us,
sure.
yeah. Like, for us, the family is the unit.
Yep.
Right, so like we go out of our way to preserve families.
Sure. No, I mean, just in terms of, I guess there is maybe some discussion about IVF and adoption for gay couples, but broadly speaking, it's not like.
Oh, you're talking about something else.
Yeah. So, like, I was going to say that, like, I don't see much talk, even amongst like hardcore conservative Christians, of like taking kids away from gay parents. Like, if a woman leaves her husband for another woman, it's not like they're going along saying, "Oh, we need to take that woman's kids away from her."
No,
if you really truly think that gay marriage is a danger to the family, then your response should be, "Well, we should stop gay people from having children in every circumstance."
Yeah.
And there is some stuff about IVF and there is some stuff about adoption. Not that strongly. Like, I don't really see them like running to the barricades to stop these things in the same way as they would with abortion or gay marriage or prostitution, but. So in that regard, like, I think it's like they don't. I question whether they truly believe that gay couples are a threat, or at least they haven't thought about it consistently, which means that there's something else at play, which is not the thing they're saying is the issue.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the worst from the yes camp is equality, and they just keep saying it over and over again. It's the worst argument I keep hearing for gay marriage. I mean, sure, it's a great call to arms. Again, this is kind of like the third one, which is, like the okay to vote no. It really, it speaks to their base. It really solidifies what they want. It's like, hey, we want equality. But here's the thing: equality is a state. It's not a goal, right? It seems like a strange thing to say, but I'm saying, like, equality is a state. Like, you want to be at an equal state. You're not aiming for equality. So I guess the best explanation to this I can possibly give is it's kind of like the same thing that socialists want. Like, we just want equality, right? And they don't care about how they get there. So, like, it's a great rallying cry for their particular side, but I don't think it's particularly convincing, right? And it just so happens to be their most, frequently used word.
Yeah, I mean, the website is called equalitycampaign.org.au, and it's got a little ticker tape thing that says,
equality.
People who sign up saying this person believes in fairness. This person believes in fairness.
Yeah.
Let me push back at it for a second, though.
Yeah.
Because your criticism of the second worst argument for the No campaign, which is gays want sexual rights, is, well, actually, no, they just want to be treated on an equal basis.
Yep.
Doesn't that undermine your point about it being about equality is a bad argument? Because that's essentially
no, because you're right. It's the retort to a bad argument, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But that's where I'm coming from. It's like it doesn't answer anything other than a bad argument. It's not making the case for yes. I mean, when I said what is a good argument, I said it's the one that. Sorry, all the good arguments that I've made, right, all try to get you thinking about what yes means, right? As in, like, what are you trying to achieve here? What is a yes going to mean? And similarly, all the no's that I've picked are getting you to think in terms of under what circumstances should we not go for this, right? So I'm saying that it's the worst. Because, yes, you're right, it's responding to one of the worst no campaign responses, but it's not really doing anything for the yes campaign, right? I don't think anyone who's on the fence hearing equality is going to go yes.
Sure, yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the unifying feature about most bad arguments in everything, which is, when you're arguing when you're just like you're playing to your own side, you're doing it wrong.
Yep, effectively. And you might have noticed that the three worst yes are basically the ones that they're running with.
Yeah.
Right. Sure. It's kind of funny,
I mean,
right?
Which I mean, I think we might have even said in our show, which is part of the reason that is because you got to get your own side to vote in this.
Yep.
Like, we don't have compulsory voting. So one of the benefits, in as far as there can be a benefit about compulsory voting, is you don't have to persuade your own side to show up. Like, you're going to get everybody to show up, because if they don't, they're going to get fined. And so really you can then, instead of focusing on getting your own base to turn up, you can focus on the swing voter.
Yep.
Which is, people who are in favour of compulsory voting, that's their argument compared to the US, where they spend an awful lot of time just winding up their own base, getting their own
Yeah, except the US isn't the only country with compulsory voting. Sorry, with voluntary voting, right?
Yeah.
Most countries have voluntary voting.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I mean, I think it's an issue particularly within first past the post voluntary voting.
Yeah, it is.
So where maybe Europe, I mean, they might have preferential
mixed.
voting.
Yeah, they have MMP, so it doesn't really occur as often. Yeah, so the
sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one is, I think we've done the worst.
So we've done the worst yes.
Yep. So the best.
No.
The best no. The state. This is funny because it's not just an answer for no to gay marriage. It's actually a no to marriage in general, right? Why does the government actually have to design this contract, right? Let's go further. Like I know in the last one I said let's just have one that defines a legal framework for a contract. Why does the government need to actually define a legal framework at all? Why don't we come up with that ourselves and just treat it as like, hey, it's a limited liability partnership?
Sure. Yeah. So, being an anarchist, I'm totally open to that argument. Like, I'm not. I think the issue, though, in terms of its feasibility, is that I think most of the people who put that forward don't really understand what that would involve. Like, essentially, it's for two reasons. Well, firstly, for the point that you make repeatedly, which is if the federal government doesn't legislate it, the state governments will.
Yeah.
It may not be a better result. But I think the deeper issue is that in the end, as long as the government is the monopoly provider of legal services, you need to have an idea of what this is, because, like, people spend it in an inordinate amount of time in family court, as it is. Even in marriages, you're spending, the breakups of relationships are bad. And if the government's the only one who's doing the legal services, they need to have an idea about what marriage is, because that's going to matter. So, in some ways, I think it would work if you had polycentric legal systems. That is, if you had competing legal systems,
oh fuck yeah,
different definitions.
Yeah,
and
you would have a court that specializes in nothing but marriages, right?
Sure, and you could have multiple courts that do that. You don't have one singular court that does it. As long as the government is in charge of the legal system, they need to have a working definition of marriage, and to do that, they need to legislate it. So, this is something I've changed about since the start of the campaign, because I was like, let's get rid of government out of marriage completely, and then I realized, well, actually, the implications of that are pleasingly radical. Like, I like the outcomes. Polycentric legal systems is great.
Yeah,
but it's not like a feasible thing.
You know who convinced me against that position was Helen Dale, when she pointed out in Australia, if you got rid of the Marriage Act, you would end up bringing back no-fault divorce.
Yeah.
So you would get rid of no-fault divorce.
Yeah,
you would bring back fault divorce, and I'm just. That is not a good
horrendous
prospect. Yeah, it's horrendous.
Yeah. Which
it's
horrendous. I think a lot of conservative Christians would be okay with, but that's because they've got their head up their asses. They don't understand what they're talking about.
I keep explaining to people. So every time I hear someone saying like, no, we should have fault divorce, it's like, okay. I used to think that until I learned what fault divorce actually was.
Yeah.
Right? Because everybody thinks that no fault divorce means like, you just walk away and everything just gets broken up, blah, 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 blah. That's not what it means. Fault divorce meant that you had to provide a valid reason to break up your marriage.
Yeah.
Right? It's fucking painful as shit.
If you're in favor of marriage and marriage stability, you think that's a good idea, except all it means is, you've got people who are being held against their will in marriage.
Yeah, because I'm just like...
They're being forced to be there, and it's like, well, that's not the outcome you want.
Yeah, because every instance of divorce is basically where both parties want to break it off.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't work any other way.
Yeah.
Right? So there's no reason for the courts to force those people back together.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It comes across like those situations where, like, courts force young, like, teenagers who have a kid together to get married. Like, there's situations in the US where it's like a 16.
No, not anymore, but in the past.
Yeah, occasionally, even now, there's just like some really backwards, like, like
counties,
rural Kentucky or whatever. Like, it's in the middle of nowhere and it's in the South. where there's still situations where young men and women
I'm pretty sure they can't actually do that.
I'm pretty sure I've seen a news article in like the last 3 or 4 years where they had that. Where there was a judge who said, I mean, maybe it was overturned on appeal. Like, I don't know.
I'm just like,
But like,
there'd be massive, like at least First Amendment implications there where you're denying freedom of expression.
Yeah.
But yeah,
but nevertheless, even, like that was a thing. Like it was that was a thing that used to happen and possibly still does. But even like theoretically, like if you think that's a good, like I would struggle to think most conservative Christians would think that's a good idea. I think they'd look at that and say, okay, it's bad that they're not together. It's bad they're not married, but forcing them to be married against their will is not going to help them.
Yep. It'll be interesting. Yeah.
So now we go to the worst.
The last
caveats on the best no.
The worst no. Okay. So before I preface this, 90% of the people that I've heard say this, right, I have no problem saying are absolute bigots.
Okay.
Right. And the rest of the 10% basically use this for some reason, pick onto this thing. And it's really just a proxy for a different reason.
Yep.
And I've been more or less able to suss out which one's which. So if you're using this, just keep in mind you have a 90% chance of being a horrible bigot. Marriage is about children. The worst argument against no.
Yep. It's too bad.
Yeah, it is. And it's because the 90% that say this are technically should be in the club, as you said, who don't want that. So the thing is, they say awful things about children ever ending up in the hands of gay people.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, 90% of them will say, like, will tell you there's a higher chance that a homosexual can be a pedophile, right, and have children. And then go like, so you're saying that gay people should be allowed to adopt? And you're like, well, I'm not saying that the law should be changed, right? Which they're going like, wait, so you want a pedophile to get access to kids? And it's like, no, of course not.
Yeah.
So what are you saying then?
Well, I suspect so Bill Muhlenberg is the guy I always think of. He's a conservative Christian writer.
Yeah.
Sometimes pops up on I think The Spectator and other things. Like I think he would probably argue against gay adoption and IVF, and actually of single women as well. So
yeah. So at least he's consistent. I mean, that's just a conservative.
But I think they're inconsistent in that. I don't think they should. They would argue necessarily that you should then therefore take away all kids from all gay people.
Yeah, but the point is basically like they don't want them to get married as a result of this, right?
It's a stupid argument.
Yeah, it's a really if you try to unravel the logical parts that they've come to arrive at this, and this is why I say 90% of them are bigots, because 90% of the people that I've encountered with this eventually does break down to, despite the fact that they're saying that gay people shouldn't be allowed to adopt and all of that stuff, they don't, right? Like eventually you will get down to it. You'll unravel their logical chains and they'll be like, yeah, you know what? I have a problem with gay people adopting children. I don't think that children should be allowed anywhere near gay people, blah, 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 blah. Eventually it will come to that.
Sure, yeah, for sure.
Once you break down the thing. The 10% that I'm talking about, they tend to, so the 10% basically use it as a proxy. It's not so much that they believe gays shouldn't be allowed to have kids, right? What they believe is that they don't want the kids to be corrupted by the homosexuals.
Sure.
Right. And they think that it's out of like a weird sort of paternalism, right? Right. They're happy with gays to have kids. They just don't want them to teach them to be gay.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think so. I don't think it's particularly controversial to say that gay relationships tend to be more unstable.
Yep.
So I think in that regard, and like I'm being a conservative Christian, like I think it's God's design for every child to be raised by their biological mother and biological father. So like in that regard, I think you can come to it, like look at this perspective and say, well, the ideal is every kid's raised by their biological mother and father. That's that's God's plan. That's God's design. That's a good thing. We want everybody to do that. The question is, well, what happens when it's not like that? And do you consistently apply your ideas in every circumstance? So, okay, you say, well, it's, a mother, two mothers or two fathers is not going to be able to, or two mothers and and a father, or whatever combinations they are, because they obviously always bring up the possibility of polyamory and the rest of it.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't like that. That's fine. Okay, there's a reason why you can think that, but they then want to also take kids away from single parents. Do you want to take them away? Where divorce is the reason, or mother got knocked up at 16. Are you going to take away from there? I mean, and historically speaking, that's what they did do, which is why it's so horrifying. I think maybe they've learned a lesson from the past. But yeah, I think it's just an inconsistency in that they think gays are especially bad, and they don't think, well, couples who live together, cohabitate before they get married, tend to break up more than people who just get married as well. So like that's another example of where I don't see a massive outrage at cohabitation, even though from my understanding, the research demonstrates that it creates more unstable relationships.
Yep.
So that's kind of, like I think that's why I don't take that claim seriously, because I think you just don't. Most people who make it don't understand the implications of what they're saying.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's my list. Those are my 6 items on the list. So hopefully you guys can take that, and maybe it'll help you make a decision while you still have time. Maybe it won't. But I mean, hopefully it's given you an idea, maybe into an insight into how I see arguments. So I guess that's it.
That's it. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll have this up. We'll be back again next week with more Taking Liberties.
Yep. I think we'll do something on the weekend, though. I think you wanted to do something.
Yeah. I think we'll be maybe gaming. Now I've finished uni almost for the year, so we might have some time on Saturday morning. Play some Counter-Strike badly.
I play really well. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I played really badly. So. All right. Thanks, everyone.